Queeveen here from the comfort of my kitchen. In today's video, we are going to be looking ahead to the night sky for the month of October. I will be looking at the night sky from here in Ireland. Because we're looking at the night sky and from here in Ireland, that means we won't get to see the annular solar eclipse that is going to happen on October 2nd. There is an annular solar eclipse this month, but it's not visible from Ireland, and of course, it's not visible at nighttime. Solar eclipses never are. This is our view of the sky just after sunset, 7:30. Again, the night sky is going to get darker earlier and earlier as we push from autumn into winter time. We can see the summer triangle is already right above the south as early as 7:30. So we're definitely leaving summertime. It won't be with us all night. We can just about see Arcturus still over there, but it's getting lower in the sky. You need to go out earlier and earlier to catch that bright star. Saturn is going to be with us from sunset. As soon as the sky is dark enough for Saturn to emerge, it will be visible. I was lucky enough to take a closer look at Saturn through a telescope quite recently at the end of September. Still be visible to a degree. Indeed they are. So this is a view through a telescope that's not incredibly powerful. I will zoom in a little bit more. There we go, just so things get a little bit sharper. And I will remove the names. So Saturn's rings are definitely visible here. You can definitely see that little spike almost on either side. Thanks to the tilt of Saturn, we are going to see Saturn's rings thinner and thinner until they're pretty much too thin to see over the next few months as we move into the future. But don't worry, that will change again. Saturn's tilt will continue to change until the rings are a little bit bigger and more visible. So we'll zoom back out and move towards morning time while keeping our eyes over here to the east. As we move into October, there we go. As we move into October, things will start rising earlier and earlier. So there's Jupiter by 9:30, so nice and early in the evening. Of course, that low to the horizon, stargazing from a city, but here we are, 11 o'clock, and Jupiter is at a reasonable height in the sky, and Mars is after joining it. Now again, Mars is quite low there, just after rising, but if we wait a little bit longer, here we are in the morning, and Mars and Jupiter are nice and prominent. Now, of course, 2 o'clock in the morning, it is still late at night or very early in the morning, but we've already got Orion and Gemini here at this time. So you don't have to wait until practically sunrise to see these planets anymore. Unfortunately, as we move into October, Mercury is going to disappear from view if it hasn't already. So from the city, certainly Mercury has gotten very difficult to observe just as we came to the end of September. And by the time we're into October, there's no sign of Mercury there in the morning. But this is just the beginning of the month. If we move all the way through to Halloween, then things are going to be a bit more significantly different. Looking from the very end of September to the very beginning of October, it's not going to make a huge difference. As we progress through the month, we can see here we're getting darkness as early as just 6:30. So here we are, the night of Halloween. I'll go to the night before Halloween and we'll move into the morning of Halloween after that. So we'll come back a little bit so that there's a little bit of sunset glow. There we are. So this is how the sky is going to look as the sun goes down. On the night before Halloween, it won't look too different on Halloween, but we're seeing stars here from the city at 6 o'clock. It's finally getting dark at a nice early time of the evening. You can have dinner, go outside and start stargazing immediately, depending on what time you have your dinner, of course. I think there's, Venus just down there at the horizon. Venus is technically visible as the sun sets over the course of October, but it is going to be quite difficult at certain times of the month. As we're seeing here, it's quite low. Venus is in a slightly better position to see earlier in October, but we can see it staying quite low from here in Ireland. That's mostly due to the angle at which we're seeing the ecliptic. So in other parts of the world, Venus is going to be easier to see. Saturn's nice and high here while there's still a glow of sunlight in the sky, and by the time the sky is truly dark, Saturn's practically at its highest. Well, it's not quite at its highest. It'll be another hour or so before it reaches directly above south, but it is quite high in the sky above most buildings. We can see that the summer triangle is now past the south. It's already starting to move into the west, and we're still quite early in the evening here. We'll move forward to morning time to see what kind of changes we can expect and how much earlier we can see these planets. So there we are at just 8:15, and Jupiter's already up in the sky. It's not particularly high. We'll see how close to morning we have to get before Mars reaches a good position. And we can see Mars there. Looks like Mars and Jupiter are further apart. That's because Mars is still moving away from the Earth around the sun. We still have to catch up to it before we start seeing Mars move across the sky as we normally expect. So here we are by the end of October, just 11:30 rather than nearly 2 o'clock, and Mars and Jupiter and Orion are up there in the sky. I think we can push things a little bit further. Coming up to midnight, there we are, and at midnight we've got all of Orion up in the sky, as well as Mars, as well as Jupiter, as well as Saturn, and of course Uranus and Neptune are in there as well. They're just not going to be visible to the naked eye. So we're finally starting to see a lot of planets closer to midnight rather than having to wait until morning time. So you can still see a lot of the planets in the sky together, particularly if you have a binoculars or a telescope, because Uranus and Neptune aren't going to be visible to the naked eye. So there's the nearly new moon at the end of October, 6:30 in the morning. Mars is pretty much after reaching its highest in the sky, and we can see Mars and Jupiter there very clearly, nice and high, very easy to observe. So from here, we'll move into the countryside, and as we do, I'm going to bring up some of the meteor showers. Although the meteor showers that we're getting over the course of October are mostly quite minor, they're not going to be as big as the Leonids or the Perseids, there is at least a bunch of them. So a lot of minor meteor showers will increase the amount of bad meteors that we can see in the sky. So here we are, 5:30 in the morning. You do have to get up quite early, but you don't have to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, as you might have had to do during the summer, to see a sky as dark as this. And Mars and Jupiter are so high in the sky, that makes them so much better to observe, so much easier to observe. Uranus is still there, just on the other side of the Pleiades from Jupiter. And of course, we're seeing that glow of the Milky Way in the background. But as we're getting into wintertime, it is that outer limb of the Milky Way, out towards Cassiopeia and Perseus, that we're seeing. There's the fin shape of Perseus. The core of the Milky Way back here, it's going to get less and less visible now as we move into winter. So I mentioned this during the summer. I'll mention it again when we're in winter, but as we're coming into winter, we can see that the core of the Milky Way is getting less and less visible. It's setting while that glow of sunset is still leaving the sky. So just about here, the core of the Milky Way is not really visible. Scorpius is down below the horizon mostly, and even Sagittarius isn't fully visible here at 6:30. We are in the countryside, so we will see more stars as the sun goes down. And there's Venus looking really bright and clear. We can see Sagittarius, but there's too much of that sunset glow in the sky for us to see the glow of the Milky Way. So although we are going to get those longer, darker nights now as we come into wintertime, unfortunately, the position of the Milky Way relative to the sun, our position around the sun relative to the core of the Milky Way, it's just the wrong way around. We're just not going to get that good of a view. So I'm going to move us a little bit closer to the middle of the night, just so a lot of those radiants are up in the sky. And we will move back through the month. We'll go a little bit closer to midnight. There we go. There's the Orionids coming up. So they peak on the 21st of October. They can get up to about 20 meteors an hour in the sky. So that's not too bad. We can see a few of the other ones here. Well, that's the Antihelion. That's always there. You can check out some of my previous videos to learn more about that. We can see the Northern Taurids there, not peaking until November, and the Andromedids also not peaking until November. But they are ongoing, so they may still contribute a few extra meteors to the sky. Moving back through the month, we can see the Eta Geminids popping up there as well as we come back to the night of the full moon, which will, of course, block out some of the fainter meteors. We can see there it's peaking on the 18th of October, but it's maxing out at about 3. And yeah, here we are on the 18th of October. So that's the peak night for the Eta Geminids, but not a very impressive shower. Here's the October Delta Aurigids, also peaking 11th of October. So here on the 12th, pretty close to their peak, but a peak of about 2 meteors an hour. It's just not going to be great. So although we have a few of these meteor showers going on in October, let's take a look at the Southern Taurids here. So they very 5 to 10. They're not peaking until the 5th of November either, but they are running through October. So we will get a few added to the background rate from them. So, and there's the summer or September at a Perseid. So they peaked in September, but a few meteors from that parent body may make their way into the sky in October as well. So coming forward into the month, I want to bring us up to the night of the full moon, which I know is going to be close enough to this date, but luckily over here will tell me. So that's 83.2% full, 91, 96, 99.6, 99.5. So yeah, 99.6 looks like the maximum we're going to get here. And the distance from us, yeah, 353,535. So that's a nice repeating set of numbers there. But this supermoon, and it is a supermoon, the full moon that we're getting in October on the 17th, it is a supermoon, and it is a little bit more super, about 10,000 kilometers more than the supermoon that we had in September. But of course, that supermoon that we had in September had the partial lunar eclipse, whereas this supermoon that we're getting in October will not. So it just so happens that for October, September, and August, September, and October, all three of those full moons were within the range of distances to be classified as supermoons. So you may have noticed the full moon being described as a supermoon a few times recently, and that's because the moon, even if it's 360,000 kilometers away or 350,000 kilometers away, they're both a lot closer to us than the potential maximum of about 400,000 kilometers away. So very often you will get a couple of supermoons, it seems like 3 this time, that are occurring quite close together. And the full moon in November could be pretty close as well. We will look ahead to that in a future video. And if you would like to see that future video, you are more likely to see it if you subscribe to this YouTube channel. If you enjoyed this look ahead to the night sky in October, then make sure you like the video as well. And you can read a little bit of this information on my website, queebeanscontent.ie. And hopefully I'll see you back here next time.